But on the surface, he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking how? Everybody's choking now. The clock's run out. Time's up, over, loud. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes rabbit. He choke. He's so mad, but he won't give up. Daddies, he know he won't have it. He knows his whole back to these ropes. It don't matter, he's dope. He knows that, but he's broke. He's so stacked that he knows when he goes back to this mobile home, that's when it's back to the lab again, yo. This old rhapsody better go back to this moment and hope it don't be
Listen, we can talk about the flag, but let's talk about... Wait.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill, like, share, retweet, do the drill. If you're watching on the YouTube page and now or on replay later today, make sure you do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button for us as we continue to build the YouTube algorithm and the YouTube channel. I am Phil Seifel, your host, at Beard of Knowledge on Twitter. Joining me today is my main man, Mark Moscatelli, at Mark with a C, and a bunch of underscores. Good morning, Mark. And I'm going to cut the intro short because our guest joined us on the I Have No Sponsor hotline. Hold on there, Zach. Hold on. I have to pull your page up. I need the phonetic spelling. Zack Ciavolella, at Zack Ciava, MBA, from the Philadelphia Sports Network. Did I get that close to right?
You got it. It was perfect. No, you did great, Phil.
I needed I love that you put the phonetic spelling there because it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, at some point I realized that it just makes sense to do it. Are people always going to get it right? No. Is it a big deal to me? No, it's not. But it helps some people and it makes them feel, like they're getting it done a little easier. So I have no problem with it.
It's easier. I don't know if you know Esfandari from The Score. He covers the Raptors at the NBA Score. And I had him during the playoffs for the Raptors series. And I literally spent 30 minutes the night before the show going through all his YouTube videos, trying to figure out how he pronounced it. I had my wife listening to these videos, trying to figure it out. So the phonetic spelling does help out hosts like me here. So
anything I can do, I'm happy to do it.
All right, Zach. So we are in the heart of the NBA offseason. The NBA summer leagues are going on and stuff like that. Obviously, the big news with the Sixers, you cover the Sixers for Philadelphia Sports Network. And honestly, before we even get into the work that you guys are doing there and now the partnership with Metro, Philly, I mean, you guys are doing great work over there. So I love reading all the guys that are over there. But we're in the heart of the offseason here now. And obviously everything is still centered around James Harden, the discount, so to say, that he is taking to stay here, whatever that deal. Where are we with it? Because we keep hearing all these rumors, but yet nothing's been official yet. There's not been an official statement from the Sixers. No contract is signed yet. Where are we with this whole James Harden situation?
Yeah, so it's obviously a weird and unique situation. So it made sense at first for Harden not to initially sign because you needed to get PJ Tucker on the books with the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. You needed to get Daniel House on the books with the biannual exception. Basically, it's kind of a dance that's being done between Harden and the 76ers to find, well, what's the most amount of money that we can give you and still be flexible against the tax apron, right? So Shams Charania did let loose that Harden is expected to take about a $15 million pay cut, basically. So that would likely price him right around $32 million, right around that area. And the expectation is that the Sixers, if he were to sign for about that much, would be about $5 million, a little less off from the tax apron, right? So just super quick, there's a lot that goes into what the tax apron is. That could be a whole show in of itself.
Give me like a week's worth of shows right there.
Basically, yeah. But just to run through, basically, if you trigger what's called the ability to be hard capped, and that can be done through a sign and trade, through using the biannual exception, through using the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. The final two of those two, the Sixers did both. But basically, you can't go over a certain salary number throughout the rest of the season is what it comes to. So not only do they want to make sure that they don't go over that because they can't, but they want to make sure that they have some room left over because, well, Daryl Morey, the moves never stop. So between the rest of the offseason, the trade deadline, and the buyout market, you want to have the flexibility.
So, I mean, they're doing all this to be flexible. They're trying to make all these moves, and I guess I'm saying I hope they keep it to that they're not hard cap, because in my mind, the moves they made, PJ Tucker, a nice player, and he's definitely going to bring something that we need. The Daniel Houses and the Trayvon Queens, they're okay role players. They might improve some of our bench depth and stuff like that. But this, in my opinion, is still a very incomplete team. It's still lack a lot of wing depth and stuff like that. You still got the Tobias and Matisse. Are they getting traded or not? We need to leave as much flexibility on the table here, because this is an incomplete team in my mind.
Yeah, and I think that that many would argue. I like to think Daryl Morey would argue this as well, that most teams are incomplete until they're complete. And what I mean by that is that you go through the entire offseason, a team's not complete. You go to the NBA trade deadline and past it, a team's not complete. That's why we see so much work being done in the buyout market. A few years ago when the Sixers added Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova, it made a world of difference just adding those two in the buyout market. So the team is not complete. The moves are not done. That much is clear. So it's a matter of what are they going to do from here? That's where things get interesting. You mentioned the lack of wing depth. That's one thing that I'm sure that Daryl Morey is still working on. He's addressed a couple needs. The need for perimeter defense, some extra shooting, that dog mentality. He addressed that in the additions of all three former Houston Rockets, Daniel House, PJ Tucker, and Trevlin Queen. Where do we go from here to get the athleticism boost? Because that's another thing that was sorely missed last season for the Sixers. And the problem is athletic wing players, at least those that are capable to play in like playoff situations, that they're not just athletic, that they can actually defend, that they can handle the ball, that they can shoot to a degree. Those players it's one of the hottest commodity in the entire NBA. So to find those players, it's not exactly easy. There clearly weren't that many available in free agency this year. So the trade market's where you're looking. So it's going to be really interesting to see what exactly Daryl Morey does. Reggie Bullock was a name who obviously has been connected to the Sixers as of late. He's not the most athletic, but he is an improvement in that area. So you have to, also think, is this improvement enough of an improvement? So time will tell. But like you said, Matisse Thybulle, Tobias Harris, I think part of the reason that we haven't seen those players moved yet is because Daryl Morey is trying to keep that future flexibility. On top of that, just to say it and get it out of the way, both of those players will be needed if somehow, some way, there is a deal made for Kevin Durant. Just to say it.
Yeah. I mean that's on the list of agenda to ask today. So I mean, you can dive right into it. I mean, I don't think Kevin Durant's getting traded anywhere. I think Kevin Durant stays with Brooklyn. It's just too complicated to trade somebody of his caliber with 4 years left on his deal and everything going into it. I mean, it's still a far-fetched thing, but I think Kyrie Irving getting traded would be much more viable, believable, that it could happen before the season started. So, I think it's going to be the Kevin Durant show in Brooklyn still anyway. So I think this is all a lot of talk, but it's just impossible to trade a guy Kevin Durant's level and get a proper return, which Brooklyn would kind of want.
Yeah, it's just kind of much ado about nothing, probably. You have obviously one of the most valuable players to ever hit, if not the most valuable player to ever hit the trade market, in Kevin Durant. You look at you have to look at the teams that he said that he wants to go to. You have to look at the teams that can actually afford a package for him, and you have to look at teams that actually have what interest the Brooklyn Nets. So the Phoenix Suns obviously were one of the top teams on that list. A lot of interesting stuff going on right now with one of their top trade assets, DeAndre Ayton, who seemingly, as soon as this Malcolm Brogdon trade for the Indiana Pacers finally goes through, which it still hasn't because he was on vacation when the trade went through and he's yet to take his physical. As soon as that finally goes through, Indiana potentially could offer and I say this could be an offer sheet, but apparently the rumor, according to Brian Windhorst, is that the Pacers don't like to put other teams out and sign players, restricted free agents, to offer sheets. They'd rather work together as sign and trade. So whatever the case may be, DeAndre Ayton seems not long for Phoenix, potentially an Indiana Pacer, and he would be one of the premier trade assets to Brooklyn for a Kevin Durant trade. But the problem is, and I guess maybe the solution for Phoenix, Brooklyn didn't really seem that interested in Ayton in the first place. So all of this kind of culminates to say kind of what you said, that there's a lot of talk going on, but it doesn't seem like there's a solution in sight. And really, the odds-on favorite seems to be that Kevin Durant is going to be in Brooklyn next year.
What about the Sixers, though? I mean, there was some things that were floated out there about Durant coming to the Sixers, or there might be some interest in things like that. Well, what kind of package would have to be given up? I mean, it sounds to me like Maxey would be gone. Tobias Harris, would they even take him? And they've already got a bunch of picks from the Sixers in the Simmons deal. Like, how many more picks do we have to give to this team? And would they want to have the Sixers be a trade partner to begin with?
Yeah, so there's so much that goes into it, and you hit a lot of great points there, Mark. So with Kevin Durant and the Philadelphia 76ers in the first place, it would take everything that's not nailed down, and that's basically Joel Embiid and James Harden. So Matisse Thybulle would have to be included, though his value is not a top tier asset, I would say. Tyrese Maxey, who is a higher end asset, would have to be involved. The involvement of Tobias Harris is he would have to be involved whether or not he goes to Brooklyn or there's a third team involved. You know, that's where you can kind of get into that discussion. But his involvement is clear just for matching salaries. And as far as a draft pick standpoint, so the Brooklyn Nets own the Philadelphia 76ers 2023 pick, unprotected first rounder for next year. They own the 2027, I believe is a top 8 protected pick. So you could, and this is not the biggest of deals, theoretically remove the protections from that. I mean, that's not going to, do that much to boost Brooklyn's willingness. But on top of that, you can add 2029 now, and then you have pick swaps that you can do in 2024, 2026, and 2028. So if Brooklyn wants to do the swaps, that's definitely possible there. If they're trading Kevin Durant, it's probably going to be some time before the swaps actually pay off for Brooklyn. So it's definitely a complicated situation. Kevin Durant does have local, businesses in the New York area that he is very involved with. He is a part owner in the Philadelphia Union. So if that kind of factors into his decision and leads him to say, hey, I want to come to Philadelphia, that's probably the only way a deal actually gets done.
What about, they dealt Simmons to them for Harding, and Simmons really has shown no desire to get on a basketball field. Would that play a role in wanting to be a trade partner with the Sixers? They've more or less got screwed on that deal. I mean, they may have the picks, but I don't think Simmons is going to play another basketball game. That's my opinion. Why would you dance with that partner again after you more or less got screwed the first time around?
Yeah, it really is the curious case of Benjamin Simmons. He is kind of evolved in the Brooklyn Nets culture. He just showed up to a Brooklyn Nets Summer League game just the other day. You're not seeing the typical jump shot videos that you see every year. So that could either be, well, he cares even less about basketball, or it could be, well, he actually cares a little bit more and doesn't feel the need to show off a fictitious jump shot to fans in the offseason. So as far as his mental state, I don't necessarily want to speculate onto that, but there is, I would say, given his track record, there is a chance that he leaves the game of basketball earlier than his body would dictate, which is rare for a basketball player, but definitely something that Simmons has kind of shown the tendency to be able to do. So as far as that deal with Harden, kind of a rock and a hard place for the Brooklyn Nets, not too dissimilar to now. Now, if they can get Simmons to play, I don't think Ben Simmons will be a net for the rest of his career or even the next few years. I think you're more likely looking at a situation where they rehab value and then ship him off again. So all that just to say, the Nets may be kind of fine with how the Harden trade worked out. Obviously, didn't work out great for them. I don't think it would hold them off from trading to the Sixers in theory. The problem that I see is allowing Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Joel Embiid to be on one team on a division rival. So it's not so much the last trade that makes the difference, so much as, well, you're just handing, if not a title contention to a straight division rival, whereas they thought
Yeah,
Harden was cooking, they were getting a much younger player.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like, why would you want to bolster a team that you would have to fight through to get to the Eastern Conference Finals or to the finals? What about Kyrie Irving? He wasn't. I know there's been a little noise. Can he come to the Sixers or not? Mostly, I think he's worn out his welcome in Brooklyn, and I think they would love to get him out of there. I mean, I read somewhere where Kyrie was at Steve Nash's house, and he asked to see Kobe Bryant's MVP trophies, and it was kind of a dig on him. And I think that they said that relationship is broken. What's the deal with Kyrie, and where's he going, and is he going to play for the Nets this year or not?
Yeah, as far as and we talked about how crazy the Ben Simmons situation is. The Kyrie Irving situation is on a whole nother level. But Irving, I think his next team after Brooklyn, I'm almost certain will be the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, as far as, is it going to be this season, or is it going to be next season? That's kind of what makes the difference there. I am not too certain, unless LeBron James has a lot of pull in the Los Angeles Lakers organization. If he can get them to agree to adding a second first round pick to a potential trade offer, to Brooklyn, and basically, kind of like I said, everything that's not nailed down for Philadelphia, same kind of situation, because the Lakers have far fewer assets than the Sixers do. And that's saying something, because Philadelphia, outside of Tyrese Maxey, doesn't have many. But when you look at, a potential trade there, it probably won't happen during the offseason. Probably more of a mid-season deal if Brooklyn says, all right, well, this just isn't going to work. We have no choice but to part with Irving, but to part with Kevin Durant. At that point, I can see a deal happening with Irving and the Lakers. But again, still, the Lakers are going to have to give up real value to get Irving. You're not going to be able just to trade Russell Westbrook for Kyrie. It's just not going to work that way. So, and if that doesn't happen during the season, Kyrie Irving's a free agent at the end of the year. Somehow, some way, I see him working his way to the Lakers, whether that's through being able to be signed to an actually lucrative deal, or if there's some type of Michael Rubin situation that goes on out in LA, and he's what's a tactful way to say this? If he's allured out there by some other means, So we'll see what happens. But the Lakers seem like the clear leader in the doghouse to be Kyrie Irving's next team.
Let's bring it back to the Sixers for a second, because you keep talking about assets for all these guys, all these teams, the assets they have or don't have. We have two assets. You hit on one. We've got Tyrese Maxey. That's an asset. And we have Tobias Harris's contract, not Tobias Harris, but his contract, technically as a trade asset. I'm almost in the boat of thinking right now, and I want to get your thought on this. I mean, obviously, we need that athletic wing, but I'm almost in the boat of thinking that I don't want the Sixers to trade either of those guys right now, because we've got to see. I mean, the title of today's show, no more excuses for James Harden. He's given the discount to come back to bring in PJ Tucker and all these other pieces. I almost want to hold on to those tradable assets for now, find whatever pieces you could fit under that cap, and just, if this isn't going to work out, if James Harden comes in out of shape again, or James Harden gets hurt again, or whatever it may be, we are still in that 2-year window of where Joel Embiid is in his prime. You want to maximize this window as much as possible. So I kind of want to hold on to as many assets as I can right now, because come the trade deadline, if we need to make a big move to get this team over the top, we're going to need Tobias Harris's contract or Matisse Thybulle as a tradable piece, whatever it may be. Thoughts on, you don't have many options right now. So do you make those moves now, or do you wait and see what you've got?
Well, I think that's part of the reason why we haven't seen the move yet for either Thybulle or for Harris, is that I think Daryl Morey has a similar thought process where he wants that to use one of Howie Roseman, Eagle general manager Howie Roseman's favorite words, optionality. He wants that flexibility come the trade deadline. So Tobias Harris, having him definitely there is value there from a salary matching standpoint. And I do want to, just to, and this is not what I'm saying you said at all, but just to put it out there, Tobias Harris, the player, has value. It is not equal to his contract. But so with that.
Oh, hold on. I'm a huge Tobias Harris fan. I think he.
Oh, exactly. And I know that. That's why I wanted to have that disclaimer there.
Underrated in this city and underappreciated in
Yes.
this city. I feel there's value on this team to have Tobias Harris on this team. Absolutely. And people don't talk about how much better he's. I know his points per game have dipped.
Yeah.
When you've got Joel Embiid scoring 30, when you add Tyrese Maxey, when you add James Harden, obviously everybody's not going to score 25 points a game. He's also improved defensively as a player as well. So I'm a huge fan of keeping Tobias Harris in Philly.
Yes.
But if it's the difference between getting a Kevin Durant or a star player,
completely true.
That's the way I'm looking at it.
And the only reason I even brought it up is that and this is going to sound kind of crude on my part, but it's the reality of basketball, is that Tobias Harris has a lot of value to the Sixers as what could be referred to as an innings eater, to use a baseball term. With someone, PJ Tucker is not going to be playing a boatload of minutes in the regular season. He was brought here for the playoffs. So you're going to be kind of saving him. To a degree, it's a little bit true of Daniel House as well. You're going to have a lot of minutes for Tobias Harris during the regular season up to the trade deadline. So if there's a deal for Kevin Durant to be had during the offseason, obviously that changes things. But there are a few situations where it's worthwhile to get rid of that flexibility. I definitely think that barring that type of situation, Tobias Harris is here unless he, approaches Morey and wants to force his way out, which he might, there's been rumors that he's been dissatisfied with his role before. But barring something like that, I see him here at least until the trade deadline, possibly even into next year, because then once he's an expiring contract, that value only goes up. Okay. So definitely holding on to the assets until you find that right deal. I think that's definitely Daryl Morey's mentality. And as far as Tyrese Maxey is concerned, I think the sky's the limit for Tyrese Maxey. There are very few players in the league that I would include Maxey in a package for. Kevin Durant is certainly one of them. But I'm not necessarily going to move him. I wouldn't have been willing to move him for a Malcolm Brogdon, just to mention a player who was recently traded, who, maybe on paper had slightly better, has a slightly better statistical track record, but is not necessarily, he doesn't profile as a better player in the long term. Tyrese Maxey, I think if you just see the shooting jump he made from year 1 to year 2, he seems like the kind of kid, he works so hard that I think you can basically lock him in a gym for a summer and he can improve one skill exponentially. Friend of mine's co-site expert with myself at Section 215, Matty Bryce, actually just worked on a piece talking about how the next thing that Maxey needs to work on is stepping up his defensive game, right? And we saw, moderate defensive improvement from year 1 to year 2 for Maxey, and that happens for most players throughout the league. But if he can really work on becoming an average defender as his next big step, that just increases his value again even more. So on top of that, if you add in the increased confidence that he's getting, with each increased game, you're looking at a guy who could be, a lot of people say a top 30 player. I say fringe top 20. I mean, and to have that guy on a young deal, and with a skill set that's so valuable, his ability to shoot, both off the dribble and catch and shoot from any spot on the floor, basically. I really am not looking to move Tyrese Maxey unless the right deal comes along, and I think Daryl Morey's of the same mindset.
You should have seen the DSM media group chat discussing this exact same topic. I mean, because there's only one name that's on the trade market even remotely, and that's Kevin Durant, that I would be willing to move him. I wouldn't even be moving the topic of would you move him for Zach LaVine or Bradley Beal? And the answer to me is no.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's got to be the elite of the elite that I would consider moving him for, because I agree with you, everything you said about him. I think the Sixers will be Tyrese Maxey's team in 3 or 4 years. He will be the guy at 24, 25 years old that's leading this franchise forward if all continues on the same track record.
Mm-hmm. Zach, I'm sorry. I actually said that he's completely untouchable and I would not trade him for Durant. And I got a lot of shit thrown at me by these guys. I think he's that good, man. And my thought process is you're going to have to give up Harris, Matisse, Maxey, a bunch of picks for Durant, and Durant's on the he's only has a few more years left,
Yeah.
and if it doesn't work out, you got a bare bones squad, and you've wasted your years for Embiid. So I'm conservative by nature. I'd rather ride it out with Maxey than roll the dice with Durant. But that's my 2 cents. A lot of people didn't agree with me. But what are your thoughts? Would you strip the team away to get Durant in here?
Yeah, and I will say I think it is a fair question. In our Philly Sports Network chat, we had a similar discussion, and we had someone who raised that same viewpoint, and that person with PSN, who I will not name, is very anti Kevin Durant in general. Not saying that you are, of course, Mark, but he did bring up the same point about stripping the team for Kevin Durant and how that's not necessarily the it could be argued it's not the wisest course of action. So myself personally, I say that you absolutely go for it, because Kevin Durant, when healthy, is possibly still the best player in the entire league. At the very least, he's a top 5 player. So if you add a top 5 player in Durant to a top 5 player in Joel Embiid, to a player who I think is still a top 15 player in James Harden, and he could prove, if the Chris Paul injury theory proves true for James Harden, and that he just needed that rehab year, I think that he could prove even better than a top 15 player. But if you have those 3 in the league, and then you can fill in around the corners there, you become a much more desirable landing spot for free agents, for instance. You can have a more complete team. If you even get one NBA championship out of that, it is all worth it. Just one ring. That is all that it takes. Now, you can argue that, in theory, could Maxey end up winning multiple rings down the line with the Sixers? Maybe. That's all speculative, as is a theoretical Kevin Durant ring in Philadelphia. But when you just look at the odds and the skill set on paper, it's a real push in all your chips, and that's a move that I'm more than willing to make.
All right, so Zach, I promised you 20 to 25 minutes. We're already at the 25-minute mark. Again, we're talking to Zack Ciavolella from the Philadelphia Sports Network, Section 215, all the different great places you're doing work. So the title of the show was "All the Pressure is on James Harden Now." You just talked about it. If he needed that rehab, is there more pressure on James Harden than anybody else on this team or this organization? And we'll wrap this interview up right here. I put it all, it's on him. His legacy is on the line this year. It means nothing to took that discount if he does not come ready to go, right?
Yeah, so obviously he needs to come ready to go. He needs to come in shape. We've already seen the videos of him working out. He's working out earlier than usual, which to some people that means something, to some people that means nothing. But he's looked in better shape already. So if he can maintain that throughout the season, if he does look more engaged, obviously there were moments where he looked a little disengaged, especially during the playoffs. Can't happen again, obviously, right? I think that in the fans' eyes and in the media's eyes, the most pressure is definitely on James Harden, though there is still a great deal on Joel Embiid. Now, for better or worse, I will say this: James Harden does not feel pressure. James Harden does not care what anyone thinks that he has to do. James Harden does not think he has to prove himself to anybody. And that it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Where it's great that he has that confidence, and theoretically, you think that, well, it's the opposite of some players who have been a part of Philadelphia sports in the past, where they're overly concerned with what the public thinks of them, right? Now, on the other hand, it's a great mentality if he's doing all the right things. So that's what it's going to take. And it's the wrong mentality if he's doing all the wrong things. If he's if these Michael Rubin parties are what the entire season is like, and they happen just about every weekend and on game nights and everything like that, and then he's showing up and he's not prepared for game day, obviously that's then an issue. So I think it's fair to say that the pressure's being placed on James Harden. The most pressure's being placed on James Harden. Whether or not he listens and responds to it, I think that's a different story. But this is really James Harden's opportunity to prove that he is not just a top 75 player of all time, but really one of the greatest players in NBA history. And whether or not that's important to him, it's still important to his legacy.
I appreciate that. All right, so we got Zack Ciavolella here from the Philadelphia Sports Network. Do you have anything else coming up this week? Anything you got to promote here? Obviously,
Yeah.
the article's coming out, but anything got specific going on this week?
Yeah, I would just say check out our coverage. We cover really everything with inside Philadelphia, Phillies, Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, obviously, Philadelphia Union. We're increasing our betting content as well. So if that's something that you do participate in, definitely look into it. Now, what I will say is that the Baseline Scoop, we do have a new episode coming out. Should be tomorrow, actually. So definitely check that out. We're going to be talking about some more of the goings on with inside Philadelphia, talking about a little summer league action also. And then the other thing I will say, within the next coming weeks, it's currently being discussed and laid out. We will have a very special, very big name guest coming on the Baseline Scoop. So just keep looking for announcements like that, and just check out phillysportsnetwork.com. I think you'll like what you see.
I appreciate your time this morning. I hope that gets you on as we get closer to the NBA season here with the Sixers, okay?
Absolutely. Loved coming on anytime you guys need me. Phil, Mark, thank you so much. You have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you. All right, so that was Zack Ciavolella, Philadelphia Sports Network. A lot of interesting stuff there, Mark. I mean, I want to get to the Phillies here in a few minutes, but did anything jump out at you that he said? Because one thing did kind of percolate my brain. I want to know if you picked up on it or not, but anything that you had stand out?
No, I mean, the one thing I would say about Zach, he's definitely dialed into the whole NBA, how the cap works, who's moving where, what's the next step. Fantastic guest that you booked, Phil. He still didn't convince me that we should trade everybody for Kevin Durant. I'm still in that I don't think that would be a great idea to do. I'm still in that camp. He definitely didn't sell me on that. But you tell me, what did you pick up on that I did not pick up?
I get his theory of you sell your soul for the devil to win an NBA title. And that's the theory. The people that are for the Kevin Durant, for Maxey, it's just like you want to win a World Series, you want to win a Super Bowl, you want to win an NBA Finals, you sell your soul. But I get why you wouldn't. So we keep talking about all offseason about trading Tobias Harris, and he mentioned that there's been – I don't see it in general conversation, but, I mean, he's tuned in, he's tapped into the team. He said that there's been some grumblings that he might not be happy with his role in this city and in this team. Because, maybe he wants to be the guy. Maybe he wants to be, featured more. And, I got into, I don't know if it was with him or somebody else on Philadelphia Sports Network in a Twitter, back and forth. And it's like, you can't just simply replace his 18 points a game. He's like, well, honestly, since James Harden came here, he was only averaging 14 points a game. So it's a lot easier to replace 14 points a game than 18. And it got me thinking, him saying that, is Tobias unhappy in Philadelphia?
Well, we talked about this when Harden was traded for, that he would have a different role and how would he adapt to it. And he was a little bit slow to adapt.
He was. And it changed his role as not just, his efficiency and what he had to do, but he had to change his complete style of playing basketball.
And I'll say this about Tobias, even if that behind closed doors, if that's what he's saying, I honestly, I don't have a problem with him being, I guess, upset or questioning his role. And he's being very quiet about it. And I think he's a fantastic teammate. I think he takes the younger players under his wing. He's not somebody that is a rabble rouser or some players might have went and been very vocal against having Harden in because it was going to cut into his time. And he didn't really do that at all. He's been the consummate team player. I like players like that. I like teammates like that.
Scotty's saying I missed this. It came out at the beginning of the offseason. I 100% missed this. And yeah, I think that's what it is. I think he's a great leader. And, I still remember videos of Matisse as a rookie and Tyrese as a rookie, and they're always by Tobias's side. And if these rumors, he's got to be going about this frustration, I'm going to call it, the right way, because I barely have heard anything about it. It's not like he's putting up a stink and saying, I want out, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. He's not pulling a Ben Simmons or James Harden or a Kevin Durant and putting up a stink. He's doing it quietly. There's some rumblings and grumblings. I want more. I want my role to be XYZ. That's how I maximize it. Look, next year's the last year of this deal. He's still young enough and healthy enough where he's going to want another fairly big deal.
Wait. This upcoming season, he'll be playing on his.
He's got 2 years left on his year. This year and next year. Well, Zach had brought up that next year his expiring contract would be even more valuable to a team in a trade.
Right.
So he still wants more pay. He wants another payday. You know what I mean? So he's doing things the right way though, compared to other players.
I think he likes playing with Embiid, and I think he wants the chance to win a ring too. I mean, let's be honest, the Sixers still have a very, very good shot. So I think he's willing to sacrifice his own personal playing time for the chance to win a ring, provided that they win. Do you know what I'm saying? But if they're at mid-season and they are not the top seed, then obviously something has to happen to let's make Tobias happy and trade him for something so he gets to go and showcase his talents and we can get some assets in return. But if they're the top team in the conference or in the league, he might as well just ride it out to the end of the season into the playoffs, maybe get his ring, and then maybe they trade him after that.
I think there's also something to it that people like to prove people wrong. And he keeps his mouth shut for the most part. He does things the right way, but you can't tell me he doesn't hear the fans and the media talking about how we should have kept Jimmy Butler over Tobias Harris. And you can't tell me that doesn't put a chip on his shoulder or motivate him a little bit. And like I said, I respect him even more on how he's handled all these situations, all these, there's plenty of opportunities for him to be disgruntled. And yet he keeps a brave face on for the most part all the time. He had that one moment last year when he clapped at the crowd after he made a shot when he was struggling mightily for a couple games straight there. And he gave that little clap to the crowd and all. He puts the brave face, but he knows what people are saying about him. He hears what the talk on the radio is about him, on podcasts about him. He might not hear what me supporting him and Scotty supporting him, but he hears all the other people bashing him. So I got to give major respect to him for the way he's handled this whole situation. But it was interesting to hear all that from Zach.
Yeah, honestly, I like Tobias too. I think he's, like I said, he's a good player. He's a good teammate. He's just straddled with a max contract that, honestly, as good of a player he is, it doesn't equate with the contract is, and that's where some people get.
Do you blame him for accepting it?
No, I don't.
I've been having this argument since Andre Iguodala and Elton Brand got max deals way back in the day. It's not the player's fault when they get them. And a player would be stupid to turn it down. And then I've had arguments with people that they've said, well, yeah, if a player doesn't think that they're worth that contract, they should turn down the money because they'll never be able to live up to the contract that they signed. And I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. If somebody's going to offer me $200 million and I'm worth $10 an hour, of course I'm going to take $200 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as much as I do like Tobias Harris, I mean, the organization made the wrong decision when they were choosing between him and Jimmy Butler.
They could have kept both and they should have kept both. That would have been the right decision.
For whatever reason, Butler intimidated the wrong people at the time.
Absolutely.
And that's why he's not here anymore. So
yeah. No, I want to talk about, we're talking about reading the room. We're talking about handling things the right way with Tobias. And I think it kind of gives us a little segue because obviously the Phillies lost last night to the Cardinals. But yesterday, the list of guys that can't go to Toronto because of the vax situation in Toronto came out. And, we could talk about the Phillies loss. We talk about Alex Bohm getting injured, not as serious as thought. But you read in the room and how you handle things, that's what makes you a fan favorite. That's what gets the fans behind you. Alex Bohm saying, I effing hate this place, but then coming up and standing up and taking it like a champ was great. Then you got JT Realmuto yesterday. When he was asked, I don't know if it was before or after the game.
It was after.
Was it after the game? Because I didn't see it till this morning, the statement. He was asked about it. Why he wasn't unvaccinated. Look, I don't want to make this about pro and anti-vaccinations. That's not the point of this conversation. The point is, JT's response was, well, I'm not going to do something for Canada that my doctor said no, just because I'm going to lose a couple bucks. He's going to lose $230 or
$260,000.
$260,000 by not playing the next two games. That's not a little bit of money. It might be a little bit of money to him because he's making $24 million this year. But you got to know in the city of Philadelphia, you've got to be able to read the room. Making a statement like that was as far off base as you could possibly be. And I ain't going to lie. there's going to be a lot of flack coming over across social media in the next couple of days towards him. And I've already gotten into it on social media this morning before the show with a few people. Look, it's not – I'm not going to say he's right or wrong for Vex, but he could have easily just kept his mouth shut and said, it's my personal decision. I don't want to comment on it. But making it about money kind of gave him the wrong type of image now. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I tweeted out last night the Matt Gelb quote from JT, and I added a quote to it: "Better to remain silent and to be thoughtful than to speak out and remove all doubt." And he just should have kept his damn mouth shut. Hey, listen, I don't want to comment. It's a personal decision. I know it's a decision that many people might not agree with, but it's mine. I'm sorry that I won't be there with the team. I'll be supporting them. And then just move on, dude. Move on. When you talk about dollars the way he did and basically writing off $260,000 for basically saying it's a drop in the bucket for him, honestly, for me, it would, at the rate I'm going right now, that's like 3.5 years worth of salary for me. And I do pretty well for myself. There's a lot of people that don't, and
it's a blue collar, hardworking city. And there's a lot of people that have been struggling for a long time. And those people that struggle still go down and support that baseball team on a nightly basis. You got to be able to read the room.
And the other thing too, JT's not a real vocal guy, and you don't get a lot of quotes from him after games, and he's not the first guy that you typically go to for a quote. And for him to come out and say that is just dumb. Just keep your mouth shut. It's a hot button topic. You're not going to. I think you have more to lose saying something like that than you are to gain or to pander to a certain side. Listen, I'm vaccinated. I'm glad I was vaccinated because I just got over COVID. I'm curious to see how I would have reacted if I wasn't vaccinated. It was my choice. If you choose not to do that, so be it. I do think we are at a point now that vaccination, people need to understand it doesn't cure the disease, or it doesn't 100% prevent the disease. It's like a flu shot. It reduces the chance of serious illness. And maybe athletes are a little more, protected because of the great shape that they're in. But I know people who are in great shape that didn't make it out of COVID. So I don't want to make this. And when he says he consulted with doctors, I think that's a crock of shit, because if you talk to any doctor out there, they're going to tell you to take the vaccine.
I don't want to make this a pro or anti-vaccine conversation, because look, I agree with you on all.
Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining either. Like it's same thing with Kyle Gibson. He's like, his doctor told him no. Well, he has, what does he have? Diverticulitis or irritable bowel syndrome or something like that. That supposedly the vaccine there's no correlation to his disease and the vaccine. So don't lie to me either. Just take the high road and say, listen, it was my choice.
Exactly. It's all about the statement. It's all about how he phrased his statement. And look, I don't want to bring, look, they lost last night 6-1. It wasn't a good game last night. They didn't perform well. Aaron Nola got roughed up. But I mean, we took 2 out of 4 against the Cardinals. Another very, very good team. We're in a good momentum kind of place right now as a team. To me, this kind of a statement, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, whether you agree or disagree with the vax thing, whatever it may be, this is the kind of statement that could start a fracture in a locker room. This is something that could be a distraction that hurts the team. This is something that, big picture, could start a snowball effect. We just gained all this momentum, and now this team's going to have to answer a lot of questions. When they're in Toronto, all the reporters are going to ask Stubbs, who's probably going to start the next 2 days, thoughts on it. They're going to ask Bryce Harper when he comes back, or, whenever he's around the team again. They're going to ask a lot of people about this. Instead of just talking about, well, you guys took 2 out of 4 against the Cardinals. What's your feelings about going to this Toronto? It changes the conversation around this team drastically. And to me, you got a team that's on. Still, I know they played really well under Rob Thompson since June 1st. But you got a team that's still on kind of shaky ground. And they're right at the cusp of whether they're really legit contenders for a playoff spot or just fringe contenders. And this is something could derail the momentum that they have been building for the last month and a half.
Yes, but I think a guy like Kyle Schwarber is going to hold it all together. He's
So.
really come out as a leader of late, and he's starting to flex his muscle a little bit. And he was the first to get out there and said basically, "Hey, these teammates, they are not hurting the team. It was their decision. We're going to play on, and when we're back in town, we're going to play together as a team." Those are things that what leaders do. They try to diffuse the situation. I really appreciate him stepping up like that, and I hope what he says is true, and hopefully brings everybody together. I mean, and let's just get over this hump, because it is still a hot button topic. There are people out there that think it's just a cold, and maybe it is now. I don't know, but certainly wasn't when it first came. I mean, it's through many people in upheaval, including the baseball world, who were this close of canceling a season over, what some might say is a cold. So, I would think that Schwarber being there, voice of reason, leader in the clubhouse, he'll be able to bring everybody together that are on different sides of the fence and just concentrate on the thing that they need to concentrate on. And it's playing winning baseball.
So I would love to address Schwarber as a leader for another second here, because we at the beginning of the season, we were craving who's the leader of this team. Bryce Harper kind of is. I don't think Bryce Harper is the locker room leader. He's not the Darren Dalton type of this team. Like we weren't sure. Was it Castellanos? Who's going to be the guy that holds this team together? And Jack Fritz, when he was on 2 weeks ago, brought up Schwarber being that locker room leader. And you're starting to slowly see more and more of Schwarber's personality. So not only is he hitting the ball like crazy, hitting home runs galore, he's also the guy that's pulling the strings behind the scenes. He's the guy probably that when the management change happened was the one that got that team together and said, let's go. And I think that kind of a leader plus the production makes him invaluable to this team. I saw somebody saying trade Kyle Schwarber, or maybe somebody called into one of the radio stations. I saw somebody write an article about, somebody saying Kyle Schwarber should be changed. And I thought it was like asinine, but really, even the joking aside, Kyle Schwarber being the leader, he was not I didn't think he was that kind of a player. I really didn't. And I'm really impressed with who he is off the field right now.
When you sign these big contracts as a free agent, you often get this impression that they're just here for a paycheck and don't take those steps. Well, Castellanos, he's not performing, and he really hasn't shown me anything in the leadership categories. Schwarber has. I mean, and to your point, you said something about we need a Darren Dalton type. I've been saying that for a while now, and I agree. I don't think Bryce Harper is I don't think he's cut out to be a leader. Most superstars aren't, because the game comes too easy for them to be leaders and things like that. They can lead with their performance on the field. I think that's the most important thing. But it also, I think it always takes like a second tier player that has kind of worked hard to get to the point where they're at, and things didn't come as easy for them to be a really good leader. So he could connect with the young players, connect with the free agents, connect with the superstars. I think Kyle's that guy. And I don't think Bryce will have a problem with Kyle kind of flexing his muscle, because I don't think Bryce is the guy where he has to be the focal point. I think he much would rather have some help out there, either in the clubhouse or on the field or both. So I think, and I've been saying this for a while now, ever since that Milwaukee game, is Kyle Schwarber was a really good signing. And I as long as he continues to hit and leads in the locker room, I think we're going to be in a good situation all season.
Real quick, Nick Castellanos, I don't know if it was true. And I saw a blurb about it, and I didn't even verify it, so I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about it. Did you see something about the hitting coach of the Phillies talking about how Nick Castellanos doesn't like to take coaching? on his swing?
No, I did not see that, but now I'm going to look
About it. I read it, but I was super busy yesterday dealing with a bunch of things, prepping for my golf show, doing my Scott Fishbowl draft. I saw it. I passed by it. I don't even know who said it, and who reported it. But basically saying he doesn't like to be coached on his swing. He just goes by feel, and he's not an easily coached player. So I don't know how much is that. We'll have to look into that more and maybe bring it up later this week. But it's something to look out for. Alec Bohm last night looked like we took another injury last night. He came off the field. I love Alec Bohm, how vocal he is. He knows the cameras are on him 24/7, and he's just flipping to the trainer. It's broken, holding his thumb. His left thumb as he was sliding. It turns out to be. It seems like it's just a dislocation, not a break. They're saying he might not miss as much time. He might not even need an IL stint. I hope that's the case because we would dodge a bullet in that case. Because Alec Bohm is just starting to hit the ball.
What did he dislocate his thumb or his index finger? Was it a finger or a thumb? Because if it's a thumb, it's going to be a problem.
No, I thought it was his thumb, but maybe it was his index finger. Let me Google search it. But
not on the spot there. And yeah, I mean, if all it was dislocated and they popped it back in, I mean, there's going to be some swelling. There's going to be some ligament damage that you really can't do anything for it. Other than kind of tape it up, and as long as
it's not even his index, Alec Bohm has a dislocated left ring finger. They popped it back in. This from Matt Gill.
This finger here,
evaluating whether he has to go on the IL, but it is not broken.
Okay, so left finger, just holding the bat.
I know. I thought.
I'm like, okay. Same thing with the glove. I don't think you'll have a problem fielding. It's the grip on the bat is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And that's all about his pain.
Some people have like the barrel, like middle of their hand. So maybe I don't know how he holds it, but maybe he can hold the bat a little bit differently and not even have his ring finger on the barrel. I don't know how that works and all. I was a terrible hitter, so I'm not giving any hitting advice out.
So was I.
I could hit a beach ball if you underhanded it to me.
But here's the deal. Like you just kind of brought up something really important. Like he's just starting to hit. He's finding his groove. And now if he wants to play, he may have to adjust the way he swings the bat, holds the bat. What is that going to do to his swing? What is that going to do to his ability to make contact? Does that put him in a slump? Do you make the decision to put him on the IL or do you let him ride it out?
And if you let him ride it out, does he have to be a DH for a little while? Because can he not field with it? I don't know. Be interesting.
Well, again, he's not vaccinated, so he won't be in Toronto. So
he's got 2 days off. There's only 3 games after that in Miami. So really, even if they don't IL him, they could IL him and just there's 5 games there. So and then he'd be back after the All-Star break. So I don't know. You might just not have him for the next 5 days. I don't know. It's kind of coincidental that he gets hurt right before he has to go to Toronto, which he couldn't go anyway. Kind of
right. So he kind of gets out of a lot of the heat that the other players are receiving. Same thing with Nola. He kind of gets out of the heat by pitching to last night. And listen, the Phillies did Nola a solid, man. Like, hey, I'm going to pitch you, and you don't have to go into Toronto. What are you going to do for me now? Now that you've decided not to get back on the shot again, Phil, but like the whole purpose of a vaccine is to obviously inoculate you from disease and also help the community around you, because if you have more people vaccinated, it provides herd immunity. So people that are saying my body, my choice and whatnot, I agree to an extent, but like, what are you doing to help fellow man? And I see things a little bit differently like that. And that's where I think a lot of these players are a bit on the selfish side, because they do have access to medical care that you just don't have. And I like to think that the medical care is telling you, just take the shot. You're going to be fine. So, but to each their own. We're getting off on a tangent again.
Yeah, I know.
Toronto, I'd like to see them win 2 in Toronto. Because I think Miami's going to give them a little bit of trouble, because they always give them a little bit of trouble. I want them to go in hot into the All-Star break. So I don't want them to go in not hot and kind of you're coming out and you're wondering what team you're going to see, the early Phillies with Rob Thompson or the ones that have been stumbling. So
all right, I want to switch subjects for the last 5 minutes of the show. We don't talk golf much on this show. We've touched on it once or twice. I brought up the Live Golf Tour with you, Mark, because I know you're passionate about opinions on different things and everything going on with the Live Golf Tour. This week, for those that don't know, it's the fourth and final major of the year, the Open Championship, held at the birthplace of golf, St. Andrews in Scotland this week. One of the most legendary courses. Literally, if you don't know anything about St. Andrews, Google search some stuff. Golf, when it was first formed, was a 22-hole course. You played 22, not 18 holes. And St. Andrews was the first course to change it to 18 holes. And then all the golf courses around the world started to follow suit. Then they changed it to 12 holes. Golf courses followed. Then they brought it back to 18. Literally everything about golf starts and ends at St. Andrews. But Tiger Woods is teeing it up this week. He's only played 2 other times this year since his horrific leg injury. And last night when I was hosting Fairway to Heaven, my golf podcast, I brought up with my Jason Sullivan, my co-host on the show, this random topic. There's rumors that Tiger might retire. You said you've seen Tiger play in person, a bucket list type thing. Golf is in a crossroads right now. Golf is worried about the Live Tour. They're already making changes to their rules and their schedule to compete with that, sports washing tour and, backed by the Saudi prince. Casey Martin, for those that don't know, he was a golfer back in the late 90s that had a leg disability. He wanted to use a golf cart, even though you walk on a golf course on the Pro Tour. He sued the PGA in the Supreme Court and won 7-2 because it was against the Disability Act, the American Disability Act. Now, Tiger Woods would probably be too prideful to do this. But should the PGA Tour, Mark, go to Tiger Woods and be like, you only played 3 times this year. The walking the course is too much for the leg. You can still swing a golf club, though. Take this golf cart. Give us eight events next year. That way, our ticket attendance goes up. More money comes in. You can help. You've already helped the game of golf more than anybody ever in the history of any sport prize helped their sport. But do us one more favor. Take this golf cart and play in 8 events. And we will deal with the side. Anybody else that complains, anybody else that doesn't like it, we'll deal with the backlash. Should the PGA Tour give Tiger Woods the option to use a golf cart?
No, because you're pandering to the player that is at least at one time was the greatest golfer ever. And it's almost like you're giving him special privilege that Absolutely. You're not giving to anybody else. Absolutely. And whereas you had a situation 20 years ago that you dug your heels in and lost, like it's bad optics. Either you make it, if you want to play golf, you need to walk the course, or you lift that whole thing and say everybody can ride in a cart, because it speeds up the whole game because you get from shot to shot. I would not be in favor of that. And Phil, we talked a little bit off air. I don't think Tiger would be
I think the PGA. Look, on a side note, I was doing some backup research on Casey Martin, and he's actually the head golf coach at the University of Oregon. 2 guys that are on tour and playing really well: Wyndham Clark, Aaron Wise, 2 young up and comers. He coached them and mentored them. He actually finally had his leg. He's 47 years old now. His leg was amputated in 2021. He basically, I can't even name. I can't say the name of the disease he had. But basically, at some point, it was going to happen. His quote was, "I thought my leg would be amputated at 27, not 47." So I'm lucky to get that. He has such a positive outlook on it. He basically stepped off his curb to grab his trash can from the street, stepped the wrong way, his leg, and it had to get amputated and stuff like that. So it's really sad. Tiger Woods would never. He's too prideful. He loves and respects the game of golf more than you can know. He would never ask for it. But sports evolve. There's always changes in sports. Every sport. I was against the wild card teams in baseball back in the day. I was against the DH universal. I'm against the shift. Football changing the rules to for cornerbacks so that wide receivers more points and more throwing time. The NBA eliminating hand checking. Every sport changes their rules to evolve with the times. Maybe golf needs to evolve with the time. Hey, it's a slow sport. Speed up. Let everybody use golf carts then if you want to. I mean, instead of having a 5-hour round, you get a 4-hour round. Speeds the game up. less time in between shots, more action on the course. I don't know. I don't know if it's the answer or not, but I think it's something. I'm going to find somebody that's okay with this. I'm going to keep asking people. Mark, you said no. Jason said no. I'm on the fence. I'm going to find somebody that comes on one of my shows and says that they're okay with this.
Yeah, I think you just leave it like that and not allow the carts. Either allow them for all or don't allow them at all. And only make the special case if a player petitions due to an injury, due to a disability. Because I think that is fair. I mean, listen, if you can hobble on one leg and actually play decent golf to make a cut, I don't see a big problem if you asked for a cart and received it. But for every player to have a cart or only Tiger because he makes us money, I don't think that is the right avenue to go for the PGA.
Okay. Yeah, I think you got the common middle ground. Let everybody that's injured or has a disability petition. And maybe I said it wrong by saying just give it to Tiger. Maybe I phrased that wrong. But allowing injury and disability exemptions for it might be the way to go. I don't know.
Phil, you're the huge golf guy. Are there tours out there that do accept the cart?
Maybe.
Casey Martin was part of the Nike tour at the time, and they did do the cart.
Yeah, that was the Nike tour was what the Q School, which is now the Korn Ferry Tour. It's like the minor leagues of golf. They allowed it on that tour. To my knowledge, the Korn Ferry, the old Nike tour, there's nobody using a cart. There's nobody on the DP tour, which is the European, used to be called the European tour. There's nobody on that using a cart, to my knowledge. The Live Tour, there's only like 46 golfers. None of them are using it, and no one on the PGA Tour uses it. Now, there's much further down the line, tours. Even nobody even uses one on the senior tour. John Daly appealed to use one on the senior tour a couple of years ago, and he was denied use for it. But John Daly's just fat and out of shape, and he wanted the back thing to keep more beer and cigarettes in for his round of golf. So that's another whole story. So nobody on the senior tour, nobody on the ladies tour uses one. So,
do you when you play golf, do you prefer walking the course or doing a cart or?
I mean, I used to before I broke my leg, preferred walking. I cannot walk 18 holes. I can't walk 12 holes. I struggle to get through 18 holes even with the cart because of my leg. So I can only imagine what Tiger Woods, and basically Tiger Woods had my injury times 2. So I can only imagine the pain that he goes through. And some of the dog tracks out here in Chester County are so hilly and so hard to walk. There's no way possible that I'd be able to walk a golf course anymore. So not a chance in the world. So, but I've accepted that. So, Anyway, we're gonna wrap the show up for the day here. Again, special thanks to Zack. I deleted his name, so now it's Ciavolella. Yeah, there. I think I got it right now. Ciavolella from Philadelphia Sports Network for joining us. Thanks to Mark for joining me this morning at Mark with a C _ galore. Armchair saying he's a cart guy. Need a place for my cold drinks. Absolutely. You gotta have what you gotta have at Armchair. You gotta have a cooler inside your bag. My bag's got an insulated liner just for 6 beers. We're gonna wrap it up though. Trending in the AM. We'll be back tomorrow. We gotta talk Jalen Hurts tomorrow. All this Jalen Hurts talk, and he's having a bad practice and good reporting versus bad reporting. How much we believe, how much we don't. That'll be the kickoff topic tomorrow with me, and Jason will be back on with me tomorrow. Make sure you stay tapped in. If you're watching this show on replay, make sure you hit like and subscribe on the YouTube page for me. Greatly appreciate that. I am Phil Stiefel. Everybody have a good day. And we're still at Ring the Bell at this point. So ring the bell, baby.